Hi, I'm Simon Kane and welcome to A Taste of California. This week my travels have led me roughly in between the wine country valleys of Napa and Sonoma and San Francisco Bay to Marin County. Now I'd forgive you for saying, what was that name again? Because Marin is a county relatively undiscovered by the visiting traveller, so what an opportunity beckons. Get there before the rest of the world does, and it will. You've only got to travel north across the Golden Gate Bridge from San Francisco and you're in Marin. Marin is San Francisco's playground. It's the sunny side of Golden Gate Bridge, both in personality and weather. Marin is basically 6 communities: Mill Valley, Corte Madera, San Anselmo, San Rafael, Larkspur and Novato, and this is what they're all about. This is Mill Valley, in fact downtown square Mill Valley to be precise. It's about 25 minutes drive from San Francisco and it's at the foot of Mount Tamalpais. Now the square is actually on the site of the old train depot. In fact, the building over there, the cafe and bookshop, is the old original depot building. But there are lots of sophisticated cafes and restaurants and bars and shops in the area, and that together with its small town charm make it a very popular yet a seemingly uncrowded place. It's a place that people pop over to from the metropolis that is San Fran. And by the way, if you're a film buff, the annual Mill Valley Film Festival is held here every October, as it has done for some 50 years. But it's onwards and upwards. Can you think why this place is one of the most popular in the entire county, maybe even in the whole Bay Area? This haven of tranquility is the 560 acres of Muir Woods, designated a national monument by Teddy Roosevelt in 1908, and it contains the last area of uncut Californian redwoods, some of which are more than 1,000 years old, more than 250 feet tall, and more than 14 feet in circumference. And you'll be pleased to know there's now a free shuttle bus from Marin County Centre every half hour over the weekend, so you won't have to worry about driving and parking. Right, a couple of interesting points to note. This is the Mountain Home Inn. Over there is the Pacific Ocean. Over there is San Francisco Bay, which means quite literally that the inn sits on a ridgeline between the two, which is why you get views like this. It's also the last inn before you enter the Mount Tamalpais State Park, and it's also where chef Greg Sessler serves up dishes like this. Good to meet you, Greg.
Nice to meet you as well.
Tell me about your food.
Well, we have some dishes here off our lunch menu, a dish off our dinner menu. A lot of this food here is produced and grown locally here in Marin. We get a lot of this food from farms down over on the ridge in the Pacific side and from a town called Bolinas. We use a farmer down there, produces duck eggs and some wonderful grass-fed or free-range organic beef. We use wild king salmon caught locally off the California coast. And we use a lot of fresh organic cheeses that are produced right here in Marin.
So how would you describe your menu in one?
It's just a wonderful collaboration of California farm cooking. Country style. We like to use just the freshest local ingredients that we possibly can.
And keeping with the local theme, why not nip inside to the inn's bar for a Mount Tamalpais Pale Ale from the Marin Brewing Company. And just 10 minutes or so outside Muir Woods, here's another piece of perfection. Muir Beach, part of Marin County's 70 miles of beach coastline. Pacific Ocean. San Francisco just barely shimmering in the haze, and all around there's some great coastal trails for hikers. And what about that? What a place to live! The little town of Corte Madera is just 12 miles north of San Francisco, out in the green Marin countryside. It's only 4 square miles in total, extending from San Francisco Bay in the east to Mount Tamalpais in the west. Old Corte Madera Square sort of typifies the area with its quaint little high street, its little wooden bus stop, and the prettiest car park in town. The new village has some excellent shops laid out in a clean, modern setting with lots of restaurants and bars and a food pavilion. A big attraction here is the weekly farmers market, a typical village affair with Marin County produce spilling over its colourful stalls, and lots more too. Corte Madera Creek is a wonderful spot, particularly in the early morning sun. On Drake's Landing Creek Walk, rowers drop their sleek hulls into the flat water and quietly slip along the creek as sunlight sparkles on the surface. And the Corte Madera Marsh State Ecological Preserve and the Shorebird Marsh is the spot for bird watching and great views of the East Bay. It's a pretty, pretty time of day. Mount Tamalpais also keeps a watchful eye over San Anselmo, the antique capital of Northern California. In its 2.7 square miles, there are more than 130 antique dealers, together with lots of quaint shops, plenty of wide open spaces, and the friendliest of people. Now this place has a story, and Paul Kreider's the boss, so let's find out what it is. Paul, hi.
Nice to meet you.
Now this is not just a wine shop.
Oh, it's much more than just a wine shop. This is a producing bonded winery. We make wine right in the back from grapes that we bring in and crush and ferment back there.
And where do your grapes come from?
Well, we get our grapes, a lot of our grapes come from the town of Sonoma, the county of Sonoma, but we also get grapes from Marin County. This one here is from West Marin. This one here is from Sleepy Hollow, right up the street.
So what do you produce here? You've got Merlot, Shiraz,
We have a red blend, a Merlot, a Cabernet, a Shiraz, as you said, that was from a small vineyard up here, and a port-style dessert wine. Also white wines, Sauvignon Blanc and Chardonnay.
I mean, you've got visitors tasting. People can just come in off the street and
come in and visit us. Some of them come from the hotel next door, the San Anselmo Inn. They come in here and do their tasting and maybe buy a bottle and bring back to the room.
I mean, they share a distinction, don't they? Because they're the only inn in San Anselmo.
That's true.
And what was the story? Someone said that you get guests sort of watching the winemaking process going on.
Well, the windows of some of the rooms face onto our production area in the back, and so when we are making wine, crushing grapes, people can look out their window and watch that.
Let's have a wine to taste.
Okay, we can set you up. Do you like white or red?
I'll take some red, thanks.
Good. How about our best, which I think is this Cabernet I made personally, and I personally picked the grapes. Here you go.
And that inn next door, by the way, is a real quaint little place with 15 guest rooms and a lovely place to sit over a quiet cup of tea and a soft musical accompaniment. And then there are restaurants, there are plenty of restaurants, fueled by ingredients from Marin County's 53,000 acres of farmland to create an eclectic range of fare. Now here at Insalatas, Chef Heidi Kraling demonstrates that amply using her Italian heritage. What are you doing for us?
What I have, Simon, I made some za'atar, and it's this heady relish that's got sesame seeds, shallots, parsley, and a little za'atar, the spice. We mix it all with some sumac. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this concoction and put it on some flatbread. We made this. It's much like pita. And then I'm going to show you how we dress it.
Okay, but you use this as an accompaniment or a marinade?
Well, I call it a schmear or a drizzle. But what we have is we have a little salad. I'm going to put a little bit of salad, onions, romaine, a little cilantro. And then look, my favorite thing in the whole wide world, a little lamb, all right?
Yeah.
And then we're just going to top it off. I've got a little cumin yogurt, a little yogurt from the West Marin here. This yogurt's right here from West Marin. Some beautiful onions, little cilantro, wee-haw. And then, you know, this whole world is diet crazy. If not, what you could do, you could take a little lamb and you could just take it and you could put it in a little lettuce leaf. There you are. Za'atar at Insalatas.
Show me this.
Yum.
Look at that. Look at that. There.
Little yogurt on top of that and you got a feast.
And there's a cafe scene too. Easygoing, laid back, good music and parking right outside, especially if you're on a bike, because San Anselmo is home to Mr. Mountain Bike himself, Gary Fisher, one of the sport's pioneers. Another person who knows a lot about mountain biking is Patrick Bush. He runs Gravy Wheels and he's also a professional mountain biker and a World Cup competitor. Why is Marin County such a big centre for the sport?
Well, that's because we have some of the best mountain biking trails in the world right here in our backyard. We're right on the shoulders of Mount Tam. We have 365 days of riding weather around here. Some of the best road biking and mountain biking is right here, and it's all based in San Anselmo.
San Rafael is Marin's biggest city. It was first inhabited in the 1700s by the Miwok Indians, incorporated in 1874 and became a chartered Californian city in 1913. It is the county's governmental, business and cultural centre, but it's also big on the outdoor life, with parkland and open spaces making up 30% of its land. So having a climate like this is also handy. 4th Street is San Rafael's downtown shopping street. Most of its buildings are Victorian in style, alongside more recent structures. A couple of particular note are the Raphael Theatre in all its Art Deco glory for one, and the other with what you might call a more significant history. December the 14th, 1817, the first Spanish settlement was built as a helper mission to Mission Dolores in San Francisco. The outpost was called Mission San Rafael Archangel, after the angel of bodily healing. Now in 1822, as a result of an increase in population, it was granted full mission status, but sadly it was destroyed in a fire. This building is actually a replica built using the original timbers in 1949, and it's now one of San Rafael's most popular visitor sites. Every single Thursday night from the end of spring right the way through to the end of autumn, 4th Street is transformed as the sun begins to set. It's transformed into a sea of colour as the farmers market comes to town. Farmers from all over the county come here to sell their wares, but it's not just fruit and veg. All sorts of trinkets and toys and games, and there's things going on for the kids. There's climbing walls and bouncy castles. Believe me, it's a fantastic attraction here in San Rafael. By the way, the Marin Civic Centre is in San Rafael too. So what, you might say? So Frank Lloyd Wright, I might say back. 4 miles east of San Rafael, on the shores of San Pablo Bay, is China Camp State Park. The park has a natural watershed along the shores of San Francisco Bay and includes an extensive salt marsh, meadow and oak forests. Visitors can enjoy bike rides, picnics, hiking, swimming, boating and windsurfing, and the park's also home to an impressive variety of wildlife. A Chinese shrimp fishing village thrived on this site in the 1880s, and you can still visit and walk through the house museum that describes that early settlement. Over 90% of the shrimp they netted were dried and shipped to China or Chinese communities throughout the US. Every day, thousands and thousands of people fly past Larkspur on Highway 101 or Sir Francis Drake Boulevard, noticing little else but a blanket of trees and a few rooftops. Would that they knew the treasures below, because Larkspur is a special, special place. There are redwood groves and winding trails. There are quaint shops and cafes and world-renowned restaurants. There's an astonishing mix of architecture that spans centuries, and all of this without traffic congestion, without parking problems, and without the stress of the metropolis. Larkspur's downtown main drag is Magnolia Avenue, listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Top end of the street is the world-famous Lark Creek Inn. The sunny yellow house was built in 1888 and the restaurant opened in 1989 with a menu of new and old American classics in the most gorgeous surroundings. And finally, it's well worth noting that there is another means of travel to Larkspur. The Larkspur ferry cruises backwards and forwards between San Francisco and Larkspur's ferry terminal, with all the usual suspects in full and glorious view. The northernmost city in the county is Novato, 35 miles north of San Francisco. Now, its history dates back to 1300 AD, when the Miwok Native Americans lived in a village at the base of Mount Burdell, now obviously the highest point in the city. The old town is a real treat. It dates back to 1888, and many of its early 1900s buildings are still here today, occupied by all sorts of businesses, shops and restaurants. Even the City Hall is housed in an 1890s church. Novato also offers a wide variety of cosmopolitan shopping opportunities and an excellent mix of well-known brands and stores. If you're looking for the opportunity to enjoy a round of golf, then just a short drive from Novato is Stone Tree Golf Club, one of Northern California's finest. Its sand-plated fairways ensure great year-round turf conditions, and its 7,000-yard, 18-hole championship course plays through oak-forested hills and valleys. Its beautiful setting provides players with magnificent views of Mount Tamalpais, Mount Burdell and the coastal range. Now, Marin County is not exactly short of places to relax, soak up the sunshine and contemplate life, but take a drive about 10 miles out of town and that relaxation becomes even more of a reality. Just look at this countryside. The scenery sprawling into the distance, gold and green hills, long grasses wavering in the wind. Behind me, an inky blue lake and picnic tables. So what are you having for lunch? I'll tell you what I'm having for lunch. Some creamy French cheese made by the Marin French Cheese Company, who have been producing cheese on the same site for over 136 years. Now, you can come here and take a tour of the factory, see how cheese is produced. Then you can try a few samples, buy yourself a couple of chunks, choose a chunky, crispy loaf of bread, a fine bottle of Californian wine, and I can assure you, your relaxation will be complete. And Another lovely place to relax is here in Novato's 35-acre Miwok Park, where there are miles and miles of lovely shaded trails alongside the Novato Creek. Now, the coastal Miwoks inhabited these lands thousands of years ago, and much of their history is taught here today by Verna Smith, the Education Programme Coordinator, and herself a descendant of the coastal Miwoks. And it all takes place right here in the Marin Museum of the American Indian. And visitors can drop in during gallery hours and see all sorts of exhibits, not just on the coastal Miwoks, but also of the Pomo Indian culture. Well, have you got the gist of Marin County? I bet you have. 6 great communities without the big traffic, without the big noise, and without the big expense. Just pretty little towns full of happy, friendly people, and right between San Francisco and the wine country. So how convenient is that? Hi, I'm Simon Kane and welcome to A Taste of California. This week, my travels have led me Marin is basically 6 communities: Mill Valley, Corte Madera, San Anselmo, San Rafael, Larkspur and Novato, and this is what they're all about. This is Mill Valley, in fact downtown square Mill Valley to be precise. It's about 25 minutes drive from San Francisco and it's at the foot of Mount Tamalpais. Now the square is actually on the site of the old train depot. In fact, the building over there, the cafe and bookshop, is the old in between the wine country valleys of Napa and Sonoma and San Francisco Bay to Marin County. Now I'd forgive you for saying, what was that name again? Because Marin is a county relatively undiscovered by the visiting traveller. So what an opportunity beckons. Get there before the rest of the world does, and it will. You've only got to travel north across the Golden Gate Bridge from San Francisco, and you're in Marin. Marin is San Francisco's playground. It's the sunny side of Golden Gate Bridge, both in personality and weather. The entire county, maybe, even in the whole Bay Area. This haven of tranquility is the 560 acres of Muir Woods, designated a national monument by Teddy Roosevelt in 1908, and it contains the last area of uncut Californian redwoods, some of which are more than 1,000 years old, more than 250 feet tall, and more than 14 feet in circumference. Original depot building, but there are lots of sophisticated cafes and restaurants and bars and shops in the area, and that together with its small town charm make it a very popular yet a seemingly uncrowded place. It's a place that people pop over to from the metropolis that is San Fran. And by the way, if you're a film buff, the annual Mill Valley Film Festival is held here every October, as it has done for some 50 years. But it's onwards and upwards. Can you think why this place is one of the most popular